Okay, in this video, we're going to be talking about the geography of ancient Greece, and we're going to talk about some of the ancient civilizations that lead to what we know as Greece today. Remember that Greece was made up of a whole bunch of independent city-states that were never really united under one government in ancient times, and but yet they still shared many of the same beliefs and gods, and they shared the same language. They also shared some of the same problems that their geography created, including not a lot of land for farming. So they're going to colonize pretty much the entire Mediterranean region. So here's the first video from Unit 4 on ancient Greece.
This is the video for Unit 4, Part 1. We're going to be talking about the geography of ancient Greece and the earliest civilizations that have an impact on Greek culture. All right, here's our SOL standard. Again, the students are going to need to know how geography influenced Greece in terms of its economy, its social standing, the political development, and how the Greeks used that geography to affect their commerce and establish colonies throughout the Mediterranean region. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to label the map. And I need you to go to the back of your notes, and there's a big map there. And I'm hoping that by labeling this way that it will help you to put the items in the right place and not have to search quite so much for everything. All right, so first up, we're going to talk about the locations and places we want on this map. The Aegean Sea will go right here, and you can choose to do this however you want. If you want to create numbers to put there and then create your list at the side, that's fine. Or if you just want to write Aegean Sea on the map, it's pretty big, maybe that'll work. So this is the Aegean Sea. Okay. Next up we have Crete, the island down here to the south. All right. And then we have the Balkan Peninsula, which Greece is made up of the southern Balkan Peninsula. Macedonia is in the northern part of it. And so this whole area is known as the Balkan Peninsula. Okay, then we have the Peloponnesia, or Peloponnesian Peninsula, and that's right here. It looks like the big claw at the end, and that's where we're going to find Sparta a little bit later. Okay, Asia Minor, right here. All right, now the Mediterranean Sea. We're going to put it right down here. Okay, and don't forget, you can stop the video at any time to pause and to label your items. It takes a long time to write Mediterranean. Okay, the Black Sea. The Black Sea is located up here. All right, and then next up we have the Dardanelles Strait. It's this little sliver of water right up here, the little sliver of water that allows you to get up to the Black Sea. And it'll play an important role later on when we start talking about Constantinople. Okay, so now we're going to label some of the major city-states, mainly the two major city-states. Athens is located right here on a peninsula that is known as Attica. And then Sparta is down on Peloponnnesia, and it's a little bit higher than that. I've got it a little bit off, but that's close enough. Make sure you put it on the claw, not in the water. Okay, so now Troy, the famous city from the Trojan War. It's going to go over here in Asia Minor. Okay, and lastly, the home of Alexander the Great, Macedonia. That's going to go up here. We got the map labeled. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the geography of ancient Greece, and it's pretty much the geography today. The southern Balkan Peninsula and the several islands that make up what we know as Greece. The Aegean Sea is what separated it from Asia Minor and sort of was what life revolved around in ancient Greece, because most of the cities were built along the coastland, which was perfect for harbors. And so a lot of Greeks become fishermen. A lot of Greeks use trade, and they use their boats to ship items. And then some Greeks even become pirates, which I think is pretty exciting. Arr, har, 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 that type of thing. Yeah. Okay, now one of the things you need to know is that the mainland of Greece is very, very mountainous. As a matter of fact, about three-fourths of the mainland is made up of mountainous territory. So much so that, Greek city-states that might be just 25 miles apart would take 2.5 weeks to travel to and from those cities. Now, the Dardanelles Strait that we talked about is the sliver of water that allows the connection between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. And the Greeks controlled the Aegean, which is right in between the two, and this allowed them to control a lot of trade and for their culture to diffuse to so many other parts of the world. Okay, so now on your map, I want you to compare Greece's geography to one of the other ancient civilizations that we've talked about up until now, and tell me how they are similar or how they're different. And we're going to do that right here on your notes. You can pause the video and then come back when you're ready. Okay, so how did the geography impact the economies and the social development of ancient Greece? First off, agriculture was very, very difficult on the Greek mainland, mainly because the mountains limited the amount of arable land that was there, and only certain crops could be grown. And we're going to talk more about those when we get to the ancient civilizations of the one located on Crete and the mainland, the Mycenaeans. Okay, so commerce, though, trade, is what is going to allow the spread of the Hellenic culture. Now, the Greeks referred to their homeland as Helena. So a beautiful woman from the story in Troy, and we'll talk more about that when we get to Greek mythology. But anyhow, so Hellenic means the culture of Greece, just to help you out with the terminology. And what happens is the Greeks, because of this trade that is set up not only on their land but with colonies, because they had to have colonies to have enough crops to grow and then trade, will shift from being a barter economy to a money economy. Coins will become the primary means of trade. Now, remember that Greece's climate is mild, and that the mountains made the city-states very, very isolated. So once again, here's all those hills. You can see the city-states, even though they are close to one another, still remained independent. The mountains limited trade and communication, and the ancient Greek world, the city-states are not going to be united under one government. But they still managed to speak the same language and practice the same religion. And of course, what's that language? Come on, people, it's Greek. Yes, it's all Greek to me. Okay, and remember the word for city-state is polis. Now, we get a lot of words from that today from the Greek word polis. Politics, policy, police, just to name a few. And the polis was the basic unit of Hellenic civilization. A city-state or polis was made up of the city itself and the farmland that surrounded it, which supported the city. Sometimes it was several small villages outside of the city that did this. All right. At the center of every city was a fortified hilltop called an acropolis. Usually it had a religious temple to whatever Greek god that city was most dedicated to. In Athens, for example, as you see in this one, the Acropolis is spelled with a capital A because it's the most famous Acropolis. It had the Parthenon on it, which was a temple dedicated to the goddess Athena. Okay, and we want to talk a little bit about whether you are a citizen of a Greek polis. Many of the Greek city-states eventually become either oligarchies or they become democracies. And to take part in Greek government was a very important role for a Greek citizen. Now, Greece is sort of known as the homeland of democracy, but the interesting thing is that even in the Greek city-state of Athens, which is going to become famous for democracy, not everyone could really vote. All males could vote, especially if you were an adult, which meant in some cases in city-states anywhere from 18 to 22 years of age. And many times you had to be a native, which was you were born from the city-state. So if you moved in, too bad. And of course, this did not include women or slaves. Neither one had political or legal rights. Now, before 500 BC in ancient Athens, you also had to own land to be considered a citizen. And like I said, women had basically no legal or political rights. Okay, so how does geography impact this political development? We already said that the mountains hindered the development of large areas. So city-states form, and they are independent of one another. And they were designed to promote civic and commercial life within those city-states. But what happens is a lot of land is not available to provide crops. So each city-state started to colonize areas in other areas of the Mediterranean region. And overpopulation and lack of land, you have to find another place to put people and to grow your crops. And so that's what the Greeks did. But this has a dual effect. It also allows them to have markets to sell finished goods to, and it allowed their culture to spread all throughout the region through this trade, including that Greek language and their culture. It's sort of all over the place in both the Mediterranean and the Black Sea regions. Okay, so if we look at the geography here, what we want to do is talk about how the crops they chose to grow and trade, and create a theory for this. I've got an answer coming up for you in just a few minutes, and see if you can figure out something before we get there, and then you can come back and get the right answer. Okay, so two ancient civilizations we want to talk about. One is Crete, and the people that lived on Crete were called Minoans. They were named after their most famous king, King Minos. And he's the same guy that had the labyrinth underneath of his palace, where the mythical creature known as the Minotaur existed. You know, the guy that had the body of a man but the head of a bull. Hey, are the Egyptians involved in this? Who knows? All right, now again, the Greeks in Crete, the Minoans, had gods of nature. They were polytheistic. But their chief goddess was an earth mother, a mother nature. Now, another cool thing about ancient Crete was that women had equal standing, or nearly equal standing, in society. The way that Crete and the Minoan civilization ended is first they were hit by a giant tidal wave, and then they're going to be invaded by groups from the mainland, known as the Minoans. And speaking of the mainland, the Mycenaeans, I don't know why I said Minoans, but Mycenaeans controlled the area of Peloponnesia from 1600 to 1200 BC. Their staple crops were grapes, olives, and wheat. And of course, from those products, from those crops, you can create products known as wine, olive oil, and bread, which are the staples of their diets. They also cheese. Now, why do you think they picked these crops? Think about it. Mountainous territory. All of these crops can grow in mountainous areas or hilly areas, and wheat, which doesn't do as well, you can get a high yield from a small amount of arable land. So that's why they chose these crops. Now, sometimes they used terracing, where they would cut layers into hillsides to grow their crops. Basically, it would look like steps on a hill where they would grow the crops there. Okay, infighting and earthquakes lead to the downfall of the Mycenaeans. They were conquered by a group known as the Dorians, who had iron weapons, while the Mycenaeans had bronze weapons, and they don't win. I think they were led by a guy named Jim Morrison, and he broke on through to the other side. Okay, maybe that's the wrong Dorians, I don't know. Okay, so what are the big ideas from this video? The geography of Greece had a big impact on the social, economical, and political aspects of Greek culture. It made them form independent city-states, and it forced them to establish colonies throughout the Mediterranean region, which also allowed their economy to be based on money. Also, this caused the Greek culture to diffuse throughout the region. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video.